Sue Carr, ladies and gentlemen.
So on November 22nd of 2018, Thanksgiving Day, I was responding to a code in the emergency room at 8:30 in the morning. I had to filter life-saving medication for a critical patient because it was packaged in a glass ampule. What felt like an eternity ticked by as I frantically searched for a filter needle as everybody watched, waited, and stared. I'm Sue Carr. You guys, most of you know me, and I'm a clinical pharmacist. I founded Carr Tech, and I'm the president. I solved this problem that has plagued me since that very Thanksgiving day. I'm here today with a solution called Frog, filter removal of glass. Carr Tech is pioneering a safer, more efficient, cost-effective way to administer medication. For those of you who don't know what a glass ampule is, this is what a glass ampule looks like, or you can look at the screen. The problem is to access the medication, you have to snap the ampule neck. And 100% of the time, once it's done, glass shards will enter into that neck and contaminate the medication. Therefore, it needs to be filtered before it can be administered to the patient. And it's important to filter each and every time because you don't want glass shards running around in your bloodstream. Serious consequences can result, such as hematomas, pulmonary emboli, and even possibly death.
As your marketing friend, I just heard you use 2 or 3 taglines, which is a good thing. What you just said, the actual verbatims of what you just said are campaigns unto themselves. Please continue.
And you might not realize this, but many medications are still packaged in glass ampules, such as morphine, fentanyl, vitamin K, Narcan, propofol, epinephrine, norepinephrine. This is norepinephrine right here. Lidocaine, a lot of meds. And here are some of the facts. 82 million ampules are opened each and every day. There are 2 million needle stick injuries and $3 billion of delay. So that costs $5 billion hospitals annually in avoided waste to treat needle stick injuries and wasted preparation time. And as you can see, there's 8 complicated processes to filtering the ampule and filtering the medication in the ampule. I have highlighted in red the most serious consequences, and that's during the recapping process. I think 47% of all needle stick injuries happen during that process. So I've come up with a safer, better way, and let me introduce you to Frog. So when I say we're pioneering a safer, more efficient way of administering, this is what I'm talking about. There's less injuries, it's more efficient, lower health cost, and it reduces environmental waste all in one step, all in one process. Here's
over 50% of all medical solutions are packaged in glass ampules. To administer these pharmaceuticals, medical professionals have to snap the ampule neck, which can introduce glass shards into the liquid. As a result, filter needles are critical to removing hazards prior to injection. Today's solution is cumbersome, time-consuming, and involves 2 different needles, a filter needle to remove the glass and a hypodermic needle for injection. Risks of this include contamination, needle sticks, treatment delays. Carr Tech founder Sue Carr and her team of experts with over 95 years combined pharmaceutical experience have developed a solution called Frog, a single-step, all-in-one hypodermic needle and filter unit. Frog includes an outer cap, inner filter cover, and inner hypodermic needle. Just mount Frog to the syringe, insert it into the ampule, withdraw fluid, discard the filter cover, and inject.
And this is a conservative estimate of just the hospitals right now. It's a $400 million market in the US and a $2 billion market globally and growing. And the ampule needle market is a $4 billion market with a CAGR of 7.5%. So ampules aren't going anywhere. They're just increasing. And this is a safer way to administer it. For me, if I can just save one life, then my journey's been worth it. That's kind of my tagline, but kind of comes from my heart. So we're going to sell the product, a Frog, at the same cost as both the filter needle and an ampule needle combined. That'll be about 45-50 cents each. When we make it at scale, it should cost 5 to 10 cents each. So you're getting a premium product at a competitive price. There's another marketing. We went out and conducted our human factor studies, and we've since conducted formal human factor studies with strategic partners. We conducted over 100 discovery questionnaires, human factor studies, and I-Corp interviews with healthcare professionals in the DMV, and their response overwhelmingly confirmed that they would prefer using the frog over the other device. And 100% of the respondents believe that frog will definitely reduce needle stick injuries. I thought that was kind of important. We just finished conducting human factor studies in the United States and in Europe, Berlin, and in Paris, which are very promising. And we're preparing for FDA. The manufacturing, distribution, and storage will all be outsourced. We're going to follow the same intermediary channels that the hospitals are currently using. And I slightly mentioned our strategic partner, and they already have established marketing channels and relationships in the hospitals, and they would very much like for fast uptake, and they would very much like to take over the marketing and sales. So I think we're going to let them. Some of our customers, our first customers will be the hospitals and the compounding pharmacies. We'd love to get into the DoD and the veterinary industry, which is huge. Our strategic partners are already in place, as I mentioned. So we will be entering multiple channels of distribution all at once, hopefully. And that'll be probably Q2 to Q3 of 2023. So when we enter the market, we'll have the only all-in-one package, one needle filter device in the world. That'll be pretty impressive. And I have a great team behind me. Let me introduce you to John Noel, my CEO. He's awesome, austere in business development and exiting strategies. John Brzezinski as well. He's in a couple of angel groups from Boston. Rick Hewen has worked for Abbott, BD, and some of the big players. He has his own companies, but he's a great business advisor and sits on our committee meetings every week. John Nazar and Terry Lepatka are both pharmacists that have been with me from the beginning. And our newest member, Maria Schultz, is my awesome research and developer that brings new light and youth to our group. And then I have a lot of support from the Maryland area through TEDCO. They've already invested, and our lead investors, Old Line Capital Partners. Some of the hospitals are Inova, Shady Grove, Frederick, and they will be, when we start piloting, they will be some of the first hospitals that will use Frog in the DMV area. So just to kind of round it all out, we are pioneering a safer, more efficient, cost-effective way of administering medication. And if you have any questions or need anything, or I'm here now, and I'll stop sharing and we'll go from there.
I'll say that was really impressive. And I'm wondering how many people on the call recognized before she just made this presentation what a big effing deal she is. I mean,
I'm not.
Okay, but what you put together is really impressive. And, you know, I'm like thinking to myself, I wonder if she's still fundraising. I could probably move some money around, kind of stuff like that. Looks really, really promising, as I'm sure you have come to recognize. And you recently won some type of competition. What was that?
I've won a lot. Most recently, I think in May, I won Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce Medical Device Innovation of the Year, and Maryland Tech Council Innovation last year. Yeah, I've got
Yeah, who can keep track of them all? I know. It happens to me all the time.
I'm humble. I think I'm at the right place at the right time. And I've got a lot of people that appreciate what I'm doing and supporting me. So I'm grateful for them.
I got the impression from your presentation that if all goes well, and I don't expect you to come out and say it directly, but it seems as though BD is a natural strategic partner that may choose to take a controlling stake of the company at some point.
Yeah, it seems that way. And actually, they just bought a company similar to mine last week for $1.5 billion in cash.
So you're good with 1.5 as a valuation?
Billion? We're actually valuated. What are we valuated at? Do you remember, Maria? I think 7.2 million, which I think is too high. And we are fundraising, of course. We're always fundraising. And thank you, Trey. Terry, I told Bert.
I have to say, Sue, I don't think that number is high, just based on other transactions I've seen going on with people that I do business with for, disposables. One of my customers came out with a proprietary catheter cap, that they replaced a 10-cent item for dialysis ports with a proprietary product they're selling for $8. And after a year and a half in the market, they were at a $30 million run rate, and they sold a year later for $75 million. So valuations are there.
May I ask how you decided upon your pricing structure?
We battled this back and forth, my team members, and initially, I've taken a lot of courses through Inova and Frederick, and this is kind of where we're going to start. But I know what BD does historically is they'll start low and they'll price it at 50 cents. And the year later, then that same product, once they get you hook and bait, it'll go up to 75 cents. So I'm guessing it'll be something like that.
Sue, hi. It's really impressive, and I'm originally from Maryland, so very pleased to hear. And yeah, as Joe said, BD is clearly the right place. My key question would be your IP position in terms of your patents, and how, when were they filed? How long have they got to run?
My first patent was filed in 2012, and they couldn't build a mold. And then, it's highs and lows. So it was a great idea. I still like it, but it was kind of breaking it, and they didn't like the breaking of the needle. So I was introduced to Galero down in the Research Triangle area, and I've been working with them since 2012. My second patent came out in end of 2017, December, and I've got 2 more patents since then, and we're applying. Then I have a Canadian patent. So I have 3 US patents, a Canadian patent, and we're applying for a PCT for Europe in the near future. So I have probably about a 20-year runway.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think that's really important. So congratulations, and if there's anything I can do to help, I do have a couple of. I'm sure you've got great connections at BD. I know 1 or 2 people there who might be helpful.
They've funded. I don't know if this is proprietary, and I know it's recorded, but they did fund the human factor studies in Europe and in US. So they're
BD
pretty
did?
much involved. Huh?
BD
Yeah.
did?
Yes.
Girl.
Mhm.
So you mentioned you're currently in a round of fundraising?
Yes, we're closing out a round of just a, I guess it's a bridge round where we're about 6 months behind due to, we had to get the filter right, and it took longer than we thought. And
Mhm.
the supply and demand chain is kind of where it is. So we are raising a bridge round of 500,000, and we've got about 300 of that secured. And then we're going to start raising a Series A for 5 million, and that's just going to be mostly for manufacturing, distribution, and storage.
Sure. And what is a minimum investment for you?
50K.
I think we
Probably
probably
go
have
down to
200.
25K.
We probably have that sitting on this phone call. I don't know.
Good investment.
Do premium members get a first crack at this?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Who's doing your?
Joe gets a commission though.
Yeah.
I only get 50% of whatever's raised because of this call. All right, 40. Who's doing your regulatory?
Currently, Galero is an all-in-one stop and shop for medical device, and Galero is handling the regulatory. I know maybe I might hit you up, Michelle, because you are just like the guru of regulatory information. But I think we have a good path. We're meeting in August for another pre-sub. We met with 1 pre-sub. We took their advice, and we're meeting with another pre-sub, and then we'll start preparing for our submission, hopefully December or January of this year, early next year.
I know Michelle does lots of regulatory and lots of quality, but now she, in my mind, is inextricably linked with the acronym MDR. Are you already in the process? I'm thinking you had the benefit of not having bothered with the MDD because you're too new. Are you already setting yourself up for a successful launch in Europe?
Yes, yes. Not in Europe. We haven't even started that. So yeah.
Well, just by virtue of the fact that whatever you are putting together, I mean, are you even approaching like CE marking yet or any of that stuff? I mean,
Not
I know
yet.
you haven't done your sub yet, but
Yeah. Our pre-sub is slated for August, and we have that put together as of yesterday. We went over our final pre-submission, and it looks good. Fingers
Michelle, do you
crossed.
find that people do their things sequentially, or is there any efficiency of like thinking about both at the same time?
In terms of your testing and other technical considerations that might be different in Europe, that you would want to think like an all-in-one approach so that you don't have to repeat some stuff, particularly biocompatibility can have some differences for your product. But really, with the MDR, and if you're new, you're not going to be able to get in line and get a CE mark for probably the next, I would say 2 years with the pressures that are on the notified body right now, or longer. So the reality is that, I mean, new technology is going to have to come to market in the US first.
Is there any, I mean, I'm sure, is there anything like somebody holding your place in line? Like, can she be completely unprepared today and say, oh, I want a CE mark, and get in line so that by the time she's actually even able to be read, she actually is done?
Well, what she should start doing is interviewing notified bodies and putting in applications, because a lot of notified bodies are just saying, we're just not taking new clients, or sure, we'll take your application, but it will be a year before we give you a proposal, much less put you in line for the review.
And would you say
I
that?
can absolutely vouch for that. I'm suffering that pain right now, and it's not pretty.
Michelle, would you, in your experience, would you expect that notified bodies are more likely to take you depending on how effectively you convince them that you have sliced bread?
No. That has
Doesn't
nothing
matter if
to
you're
do-
good
that
or
has
not?
nothing to do with the application process.
Mhm.
Yeah,
No, just the
and
willingness, like you have more
No.
potential clients than you have capacity. Are you more likely to
Yeah.
take one that, oh my God, that's a great invention and we want to help this person? No.
No. And the other thing to keep in mind for everybody is that there are a limited number of notified bodies who actually have gone through the MDR certification themselves. And all of them have existing clients, which all have, if they're big clients, have thousands of products that all need to get re-registered. So there is this tsunami of re-registrations that have to happen. I know a guy
Yeah.
who said that Smith & Nephew is going to get out of the hip business in Europe because it's just not worth it to them to try to get all of their bits and pieces and products re-registered.
so Team NB put out a fascinating report where they surveyed all of the current notified bodies, and that the notified bodies only have capacity to issue 6,300 certificates a year. And there are upwards of, I think, 18,000 that are going to expire by May of 2024. So
I don't see how the regulatory bodies can not make gross exceptions. I mean,
So what the exceptions that are going to be allowed will be at the notified body's discretion. And if you have not applied, if you're not in the queue with your MDR documentation complete and submitted by May of 2023, then you're not eligible for the notified bodies to consider you ready for MDR. So only the people who have transitioned their quality management systems, who have transitioned their technical documentation is complete, which 50% that has been turned in is not complete. And by May of 2023 will be considered eligible for their MDD certificates to continue. So basically only the people that got ready in time to make that 2024, and the only reason that they don't have their certificate is because they're still waiting on the notified body resources, will be eligible. And those are the products that are going to continue to be marketed in Europe.
I'm going to send you a note on premium about a campaign I just thought of for you.
Okay,
Okay.
so I have to start now. That's what Michelle's saying.
Yesterday would be better, but
Yeah.
now's good.
Okay,
Is that something she can outsource to you, Michelle?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
maybe
take people
Or
that,
David?
yep, and David too.
So,
I like to take a
Michelle,
lot of small companies that don't have any internal regulatory and quality, and we kind of serve as their virtual staff.
Michelle, what's your take though, what happens in Europe if all of a sudden 30 or 40% of devices disappear from the market because they can't get this done in time? And I kind of ask in the content, we went through this with a bunch of products that fell under the biocide requirements. And, those filings, I think our earliest filing we made under the biocide registration was 2007. That file is being reviewed this year. And at the time, I mean, there was $3 million put into that biocide package.
I think that what products remain on the EU market is just the big unknown right now. And it won't be until there's an actual impact to patient care that I believe until the regulators do something, because they just published last week a position paper that was a scathing rebuke to manufacturers for not being ready. And that's how all these parameters that they set up are intended to keep the products on market for the client, for the people that were prepared. So one can only hope that there are enough people in queue that can get their certificates extended that you won't have impact to patient care in Europe.
It's going to be interesting to see though, because it's not just in Europe, it's not just about patient care. I mean, you're dealing in terms of market access and reimbursement for a lot of products. You're going through national health systems under bid process, and when those systems start seeing massive increases in pricing from the people that are still in the market just based on the fact that they can because they've got less competition, I want to see how that plays into the politics of the regulatory structure.
Yeah, it's very complicated right now for sure, and you said it's a political game. There's a lot more than just access to the medical devices that's going to be impacted.
How many of you really hate the sound of nails on a chalkboard? That's what's happening for me now. The equivalent for me is lawnmower on a Zoom call. That's what's happening to me right now.
I think I have you, Joe.
What's
yours?
I've got a very loud dishwasher, but I also have the Air National Guard that's been flying over my house all morning, annoying the hell out of my dog.
Have you done something that requires the International Guard to be flying over your house?
No, I'm up in Vermont, and there's a Air National Guard base in New Hampshire, and they changed their training area to fly over this part of Vermont nowadays.
Okay, you win.
The F-22s are quite loud.
You
I
win.
want to point out a comment that Jan made in the chat that said her last company started preparing for the new MDR before I left them almost 10 years ago. And it's going to be companies like that that are going to be able to maintain their access to the EU market.
I remember hearing the MDR saying when people said, we can't get in, we can't get this certification and stuff, they kept saying, and this started 5 years ago, every year they said, that's not our fault. You need to get it done.
There was a conversation
that was essentially the point of their paper that they published last week, Jan. They said, we told you it was coming and now it's almost here and you're not ready, and that's not my fault.
Right. They've been doing that every year for the last 5 years. So,
but the other fundamental problem is it's the EU administration government who basically have created this, what I call a Three Stooges problem. Most of us are old enough to remember. Larry, Curly, and Moe keep trying to go through the same doorway at the same time. If not, look it up on YouTube. It's it basically encapsulates what's going on.
well, we've
I'm sure you'll send it to us.
Yeah. We've also had problems in the ISO documentation group with this HAS review they do, not approving specifications that allow the medical devices to continue being made per specification, because they want other things in there that nobody ever considered necessary in a ISO document. So that's been fun dealing with too.
I want to redirect a little bit. There are now 3 things in queue that I want to address, but first, Josue, tell us a bit more about what you do, because Sue just shared that she plans to manufacture in Tijuana.
Yeah, so I basically help companies, manufacturers and distributors get market access in Mexico. And we help with the regulatory aspect, getting them approved with COFEPRIS, which is the Mexican FDA. But we also have a good network in Mexico. And you said that you would most likely manufacture your product in Tijuana. We have also partners in Monterrey, the state of Nuevo León, where they can help you specialize with medical devices that could help you if your product is also looking for improvement, etc. They can help you manufacture there as well.
I'm sure Galero's taken designed for manufacturability into consideration.
Yeah, they actually have a factory in Tijuana. That's why
Okay.
they just opened up. That's why I mentioned that. But you know, we're open and we're taking quotes.
Yeah, I can set up an introduction with the partners in Monterrey. It doesn't hurt to hear their perspective, right?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot that must go into consideration. And we have multiple products. This is just the first, and we're going to have a smaller needle to be injected right into a patient, right into a patient directly. And then we have a safety feature we're going to add on. So we have a few products.
Could you help me understand
So
what that means? Sue,
Our first product is just going to be a needle that's going to be directly injected into an IV bag or IV line, not into a patient. This is our easiest way of access.
Was that clear to anyone else? It wasn't clear to me. I just saw that I don't need to worry about 2 needle heads. I don't need to switch, and I won't get stuck, and it'll be faster and it'll be more efficient.
Well, because of the needle that we're using, it's a larger needle, and we don't want to use that needle to inject into a patient. It'll hurt them really bad. So we're going to use this as a predicate device once we receive FDA approval, and then quickly go for a second application with a smaller needle.
If I understand you, the primary difference will be the needle will be smaller.
The inner needle size, yeah.
And that will require its own set of Michelle submissions and everything else.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, let me ask you this, changing subjects a little bit. Who have you gone to for funding? Are you looking for angel or venture? Or?
We haven't gone to venture yet. TEDCO is a Maryland nonprofit organization that supports biohealth. And that's where I kind of started. I had pitched at an event, and then they brought me on to, I won a Salisbury pitch competition, and then TEDCO brought me on to the Builder Fund, which it was good cohort because they taught you about leadership and good qualities, and they invested $50K, and that was the start. And right before COVID hit, I had pitched at a small event the same day, one in front of 500 people, another in front of maybe 30 people. And from that smaller event, I got my lead investors, Old Line Capital Partners, and they're just a seed investment angel group in Maryland. And I got TEDCO. I secured a banker, private banker, and my CEO, John Noel, met me that night. And he is an ex-Army medic that understood, they got it.
Bridge round, like looking for.
So our bridge round is going to be seed angel investors.
Okay, and it's new investors, not just open to the ones that have already invested in you.
It is open because they're contributing to that as well. I think TEDCO.
You may want to apply. There's a group called Portfolio in San Francisco area, like with an A on the end, and it specializes in women-led companies. And they have a whole life science division.
I don't know if I've applied to them or not, but it sounds familiar, but I'll look into that. Thank you,
Can I
Michelle.
tell you, this is my favorite kind of Friday call, where somebody talks about what they're working on and everyone's like, did you think of this? And did you think of that? I'm grateful for you all. And to that effect, I'm going to ask Nikki if he heard anything in a health economics reimbursement area that she might not have considered.
No, Sue is in the fortunate space of never needing my help. that it's the dream Goldilocks, situation that no insurance company will know, no hospital is going to care as far as the value analysis committee is concerned. It's swapping out this SKU for this SKU.
Why do you say that value analysis committees won't care about a purchasing vendor switch? I thought they're involved in all of those.
Yeah, if it meets a certain dollar threshold. Intermountain, our threshold was, it was like $250,000 a year or more in spend. That met our threshold of coming to my committee. Maybe this will, I don't know. Sue could probably say, yeah, we'll probably do $200,000 in every hospital. I don't know. But these types of things, most people just go, yeah, whatever you want. It's not a pacemaker. It's not a new implantable. It's not a big new capital expense.
Mhm.
They look at this as like, it's $4, let the director of pharmacy switch out this SKU for Stu's.
Mhm.
What's going to be your market price, and how does it compare to what Nick's talking about the currently utilized solutions?
Yeah, well, our initial evaluation, and this goes back to what Joe asked, what is our price? And a filter needle and a hypodermic needle costs about 45-50 cents. So if we sell it for 50 cents our first year, it will be easier to get the buyers who are worried about every single penny to buy into this, because you're getting a premium product at a competitive price. And then the year after, I'm sure the price will go up.
Yeah, that Michelle's question's a good one. I mean, if you're on par with what's currently being there, then, or even cheaper, if somehow, some way you can show, hey, actually we're 3 cents cheaper, then you have a dominant strategy, better outcomes at a lower price. That's the health economic.
Well, we interviewed, from our human factor interviews, what we found is they did ask that question. The marketing team is very interested in that, and what would you pay more and what would you pay less? So you don't want to really charge less, because then they think it's an inferior product. You could charge 5 cents more and say you're selling a superior product. And so they asked the question, what percentage would you pay? And some would pay 50% more, and some would pay 20% more, some would pay 10%. It was all over the place. There wasn't any.
Sue, here in the UK, taking my own company, an area of interest, which is urology, the NHS, which is thought of as a real penny pinching bunch of folks, today by value, 90% of NHS spend on catheters is in intermittent catheters, which is for a long-term patient going to be about 300 pounds per month, versus Foley catheters, which are maybe about 20 pounds a month. Mm-hmm. They did that change because of a couple of interesting human factors. And so I don't get any commission from you working with Nick, but I would actually say maybe you might want to figure some of this stuff out, because again, if it's what you were saying about the better workflow for nurses, saving them time was a major factor in why they shifted from Foley's to intermittents. The other factor was there is lower incidence of infection because you don't leave this thing in our case. If there's lower needle sticks, if there's, all these other factors that you're talking about, which can longer term save the NHS money, they're actually interested in hearing that stuff, but you need to give them that data.
Good information. Thank you, Ed. I want to work with Nick and Michelle.
Everyone wants to work with Nick, and yet he has a full-time job and keeps making children. How many children are we up to? No, you don't have 6 children.
Well, the twins we're having in November will be 6, 5 and 6.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we had one that passed, So Holly will have had 6 kids. We'll have 5 running around.
So you finally figured out scale economies on this process. I'm really pleased with you, Nick.
Do you save money when you have twins? Because it's like you only have one operation, I would think.
Well, I'll tell you, I get the same amount of paternity leave.
And the problem having twins here is that although maybe there's some savings on that first instance, beyond that you have duplications of everything because there's no hand-me-downs.
That's right.
Now you have an installed base of hand-me-down inventory, so that's fine. I had a girl and then 2 boys, and neither of them cross-dress.
Well, hey, I do have good news. We didn't find out with any of the first 4, we didn't find out their genders. We waited until they were born, but we did find out with these 2, and they're twin baby girls. So
Oh, congratulations.
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 Now you've got to double the American Doll subscription. You just need to get a subscription for the American Dolls, and you're going to have to tell that story now for the rest of your life.
that's too good, because in that lecture that I gave, I always talk about American Girl dolls, and I use it as this analogy. And Michelle, I didn't even think about it, but yeah, you're right. Those $300 injection molded dolls, I'm gonna have to go buy 100 more of them for these.
You need to swap out your picture and have 2 girls holding the dolls.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
this is hard to follow up on, but this is where I'm able to leverage my grace as a moderator. Capabianca and Lynn, I call you both Eddie. That's a problem now. So Dr. Lynn, which sounds
Oh, no,
ridiculously
don't do that.
formal for you, but Dr. Lynn, you were having a conversation in the chat, and Josue also commented it had to do with regulatory, it had to do with Latin America. Would you share with the group?
Question directed to me or to Josue?
Yes, to you. You wrote something which triggered a conversation. Would you share with the group instead of passing the notes along in the back of the room?
Oh, okay. What I was saying earlier is given the backlog of regulatory clearance in Europe for a startup, it would seem it's not as efficient to wait in line and try to get into a very congested regulatory queue. Then focus your efforts on US and Latin America and wait for a few years for the backlog to clear. And then hopefully it'll be easier then to approach the EU market. Just going for the lowest hanging fruit, that's all.
Ha! Okay, that wasn't at you. It's Nick making jokes in the chat. For
I was
everyone's
going to say,
benefit,
Nick,
just- he was noticing that our guest Maria has a halo-like appearance, and we would like to hear more about that. Eddie, pardon me, Dr. Lin, you have been working on your prototype for quite some time. I think you agreed you can be our guest in 3 weeks to talk about what you're working on.
Why do you have to warn everybody away so early?
You don't have to tell them that you're going to be difficult to listen to. I would say play it cool between now and then. Get them on the call, then unleash your puns. This is just my advice.
And make sure you talk about packaging. I haven't heard about packaging. I know Sue's needle, I'm worried that she might do a BD packaging, and that's a crap package. But anyway.
Crap. You don't talk like that on this call, Jan Gates.
Sorry. I heard you worse at the MDG.
Go on.
Anyway.
Go on.
I just was wondering how that's all going to work for you guys, because people are doing these marvelous devices and then they are not putting them in packaging that actually is usable or easily usable and doesn't protect the product very well. So
we're exploring a couple of options. Actually, I just reached out to my friend over at Stephen Gould and here in Rockville. And we also we're talking about like blister packing 5 at a time. And that's, and also we've come up with the QR code that just plays Star Wars music for a 10-second slowdown, a part of that video that just shows that you insert it into the ampule, you remove it and remove the cover, just kind of like a user IFU type QR code, along with directions. So that's what we're thinking of right now. This is what we used for packaging in Europe, which is really not efficient because it's way too big, but we're gonna like shorten it and cut it down.
What is the material?
I have no idea.
it's Tyvek on one side, and
There
I'm
you
not
go.
sure what the other side is. And if it's the same material that BD uses, you will get a lot of holes in it, especially those 5-pack blisters. So I'm just wondering,
That's-
it's
Right now, we're thinking of 5-pack blisters. So
Please make a
that's good
date
to
with
know.
Ms. Gates.
We're discussing that. Thank
Yeah.
you, Dan. Maybe I'll
Take a
reach out
half
to you.
hour.
I got a lot of people to reach out to, right?
Mhm. Well, you didn't think you thought you would just do this and have no homework afterward?
I always have homework, right?
Yes,
I'm
you
getting
do.
NSF grant.
Such is the life of the founder. But
I need a happy hour really bad. I know that.
yeah, and Stephen Gould is really good for expensive packaging. So You'll get something. It's usually quite expensive if you use them compared to other, but it is a one-stop place, which is why it costs so much.
Yeah.
You're
Just-
saying
just
that
telling you.
as a vendor, she's going
As
to
a vendor.
spend. So
She'll
do you
spend
know a less
about-
expensive option, Ms. Gates?
Yeah, it's usually about a third to 50% more than other places, but that's okay. And when you're first starting, it's a great place to start out because it's one stop with everything.
As a potential investor, Ms. Carr, I would like it if you spoke with Ms. Gates to see
I
if you
was
could
just gonna
save
ask
a
questions.
third
Should I
of the
reach out to
packaging.
you?
Sorry, I just being in packaging for a while. I know they're good, but they're expensive.
Dr. Lin, I feel we glossed over. what you were
And
saying.
Lynn, I that's Dr. Lynn.
Please just call me Ed.
I got to jump, so I'll make it easy, Eddie. You've got the chair for us.
Okay.
For the Eddies.
Exactly.
All right, Cap.
And
See you
just
later.
give me an idea, yeah,
See you,
of what
Eddie.
you might be doing, how you're going to sterilize it, and I can give you some ideas and what you might want to do for packaging.
That'd
Where'd
be
Eddie
great.
go?
Hey, Jan.
Oh.
I'm here.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
Eddie, do you feel that between when should a startup like you start thinking about the EU and your side conversation with Josue about Latin America that you have been sated, or do you have outstanding questions?
Actually, I have long known that the EU market is very complicated and challenging to penetrate because for one thing, you got to do all those translations for different countries and so on. And then once they switch to this new, more complicated system, it just makes it even more distant. So for a startup with limited resources, I would not touch EU unless someone in that territory is willing to take over all the expenses and manpower necessary to get it done. And instead, I would focus on US and Latin America. That to me, that is clearly the most cost-effective approach for a startup.
I'm quite eager for your session in a few weeks, actually. Next week, we have Shelby, who's going to be talking about cybersecurity. Then Vitaly, who's on the call, is going to talk about his ADHD and autism treatment. So we have, after Shelby, back-to-back founders talking about what they're working on for us to all collaborate and help. So
should I mention, just give a tiny capsule of what I'll be talking about?
I don't think anybody cares. No, I'm sorry. Yes, we all care a great deal.
All right. So what I have invented.
I'm trying to get better about lifting people up and not having put down jokes, but it's hard. I've been doing this for just too long. I celebrate you, Eddie. Tell us what you'll be talking about. Okay,
so I was actually working on an advanced wound care system that I anticipated launching in about 18 months or so. And
sorry,
was just
please stop. We have a guest. Nikki. Hi. Put your mic on.
There you go.
Is that a little lady?
This is Lady, and yes, we named her Lady. And no, we've never smoked marijuana. We did that with our eyes wide open.
Can you bring her closer to the camera so we can see her cute little face?
Yeah.
Oh, she's adorable.
Thank you.
Nick,
Yeah, two little sisters coming up.
Nick, I've always been impressed with all the things you do. So I knew that you led a very productive life, but only today I learned you also lead a very reproductive life.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Lin likes puns.
That was a good one. I'll take that one.
Well, thank you.
So Eddie, sorry.
Okay, no problem. So going back to what I was saying, when I heard that our government was spending $3 billion on ventilators to rescue COVID patients, this is around March of 2021. I decided to use my knowledge about pulmonary physiology, being an anesthesiologist. I then invented this device called Centrio Oxy. It's a super oxygenating mask, and it's now been clinically proven to outperform high flow nasal cannula that runs on 60 liters a minute, and mine needs at most 10. So it saves at least 80% of the oxygen that will be consumed, and keeps the patient from having to get on a ventilator. They can also come off ventilator sooner and earlier. So it is going to have a very significant impact. Except the COVID, because of FDA delays, I was not able to catch the COVID surge, but nevertheless, it will help both chronic and acute instances of hypoxia, meaning low oxygen in the blood.
That was a great trailer for July 15th, ladies and gentlemen. In the meanwhile, it's really nice out where I am. I think I might actually go outside today, and I hope you guys have a nice weekend. Sue, thank you. I'm going to write you privately. You can tell me where to send the check.
Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate your support.
Sue, I sent you a connection request on LinkedIn. I'd like to talk to you next week if you got a little bit of time.
Absolutely, Kevin.
And I may have some business for Nick as well.
See, my little family. You make me so happy. Bye, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Everyone, have a great time and a great weekend.
Thanks.